You are not your thoughts. Read that again. Because if you believe everything your mind tells you, you are already enslaved by it. That voice in your head, the one whispering that you're not good enough, that you're failing, that you'll never measure up, is not reality. It's a distortion, a parasite feeding off your self-doubt. And if you don't learn to control it, it will control you. Marcus Aurelius knew this over 2,000 years ago. He ruled an empire, faced endless betrayal, war, and hardship. But his greatest battle? The war inside his own mind. And that's the battle you face every single day. Not the external world, not your circumstances, not even your past, but the thoughts that dictate how you interpret reality. You cannot stop negative thoughts from appearing, but you can decide what power they have over you. The difference between a person who succumbs to despair and a person who rises above is not luck, intelligence, or talent. It is mastery over the mind. This is what the Stoics understood. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You cannot always change your situation, but you can always change your perspective. When you stop believing every negative thought, you strip it of its power. When you stop reacting emotionally, you gain control. So today, you make a choice. Will you continue to be ruled by thoughts that weaken you? Or will you take control and destroy them before they destroy you? In this video, we'll break down 9 Stoic principles inspired by Marcus Aurelius to help you dismantle negativity, reshape your perception, and reclaim the power that has always been yours. Comment "Master my mind" if you're ready to stop being a prisoner of your own thoughts. Like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic, because true strength begins in the mind. Now let's begin. Number 1. You don't control events, you control your response. Life doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't adjust itself to fit your expectations. It will throw chaos at you, betray you, humiliate you, and push you to your limits. The storm will come whether you like it or not. But here's the truth. The storm is not what breaks you. Your reaction to it is. A man loses his job. One spirals into self-pity, drowning in resentment, blaming the economy, his boss, the universe. Another sees it as an opportunity, a chance to start over, to build something for himself, to escape a life he wasn't even happy with. Same event, different response, different life outcomes. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. He ruled an empire during a time of war, disease, and political betrayal. He had every reason to collapse under the weight of his circumstances. But instead, he wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." Think about that. Harm is a choice. Suffering is a choice. The world doesn't determine your emotions. You do. Events happen, but you decide what they mean. Take Michael, for example. He spent years building a business from the ground up. Blood, sweat, and sleepless nights. And then in an instant it was gone. A lawsuit, a competitor, a financial mistake. Doesn't matter how. What matters is how he reacted. At first anger, then despair. Then something shifted. He remembered a simple truth. The event is neutral. His interpretation of it is not. He could have seen it as a failure, an injustice, a cruel twist of fate. Instead, he chose to see it as a reset, a forced evolution. He refused to be broken by what happened, because what happened was just an event. How he responded was what mattered. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." A weak mind believes the world is against them. A strong mind knows the world doesn't owe them anything. And so they adapt. They take pain and forge it into strength. They take setbacks and turn them into lessons. You don't control the storm. You don't control people's opinions, the economy, the unexpected blows life throws at you. But you control what happens next. You control whether you become bitter or better. You control whether you let circumstances define you or whether you rise above them. The question is simple. Will you let the outside world dictate who you are? Or will you choose your own response? Number 2, question your negative thoughts. Don't let them control you. Your mind is a battlefield. Every day, thoughts flood in, some empowering, some destructive. And the most dangerous ones, the ones you never question. The ones that whisper, "You're not good enough, you'll fail, no one really cares." These thoughts don't announce themselves as lies. They feel real, and that's why they control you. But here's the truth. Just because you think something doesn't make it true. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your thoughts are negative, your entire world darkens. If your thoughts are disciplined, your world becomes stable. The problem is, most people never stop to examine their thoughts. They just accept them as fact. Take Daniel, for example. He walked into a meeting, and within minutes, his mind started attacking him. You sound stupid. Everyone here is more qualified than you. Why did you even think you could handle this job? His heart pounded, his confidence drained, and without realizing it, his thoughts dictated his actions. He withdrew, avoided eye contact, stumbled over his words. And when the meeting ended, he had confirmed his worst fears, not because they were true, but because he acted as if they were. Now imagine if Daniel had challenged those thoughts. Instead of just believing them, he questioned them. Do I really sound stupid, or am I just nervous? Would I say this to a friend in the same situation? Is there actual proof that I'm failing, or is this just self-doubt talking? Negative thoughts thrive in the dark, but the moment you expose them to logic, reason, and evidence, they lose power. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of your worst fears will never come true. Most of your doubts are not grounded in fact. The problem is, if you never question them, you'll live as if they're real. So next time your mind tells you that you're failing, that you're not good enough, that the world is against you, don't just accept it. Challenge it, because the only thoughts that can control you are the ones you refuse to question. Number 3, break the cycle of negative thinking with action. You can sit there analyzing every negative thought, replaying every mistake, dissecting every insecurity, or you can get up and do something about it. Overthinking is a trap. The more you let negative thoughts loop in your mind, the stronger they become. You start by worrying about one thing, and before you know it, your entire life feels like a disaster. But here's the secret. Thoughts don't disappear by thinking about them more. They disappear when you take action. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. In other words, stop overanalyzing and start doing. Meet Josh. Josh always wanted to get in shape, but every time he thought about it, his mind fought back. You don't have time. You'll look stupid at the gym. You're too out of shape for this. And so, for years, he did nothing. Every day, the same cycle. Wake up, feel bad about himself, promise he'd change, do nothing, repeat. Then one day, Josh made a rule. No more thinking, just action. He put on his shoes and went for a 10-minute walk. It wasn't a perfect workout. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was movement. And that movement broke the cycle. The next day, he walked again. Then he joined a gym. Then he built a habit. And within a year, he was in the best shape of his life. Because that's how you destroy negative thoughts. Not by thinking differently, but by acting differently. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of your fears, doubts, and worries exist only in your head. The moment you take action, any action, you prove to yourself that reality is not as bad as you imagined. So what are you stuck on? What are you overthinking? Whatever it is, stop thinking and start moving. Because no amount of analyzing will change your life. Only action will. Number 4, see the situation as an outsider. Detach and gain clarity. Imagine you're watching a movie. The main character is struggling. Maybe they've lost their job, had an argument, or faced a painful setback. You, sitting comfortably in the audience, see everything clearly. You see how they're overreacting, how they're letting emotions cloud their judgment. You see solutions they can't. You see their strength, even when they don't. Now ask yourself, why can't you do the same with your own life? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You can leave the battlefield at any time by changing your thoughts." The battlefield isn't real, it's in your mind. It's the constant stress, the replaying of past mistakes, the emotional storms that make every problem seem bigger than it is. But if you could step back, if you could see your situation the way an outsider would, you would instantly gain clarity. Let's take Emma. Emma was passed over for a promotion at work. She felt humiliated, undervalued. Her thoughts spiraled. I'm not good enough. I'll never advance. Maybe I should quit. But what if Emma wasn't Emma? What if she were just a character in a movie you were watching? Would you tell her she's a failure? No. You'd remind her that setbacks happen to everyone. That one missed promotion doesn't define her career. That maybe there's a lesson here. Maybe she needs to improve a skill, have a conversation with her boss, or even look for better opportunities elsewhere. When emotions control you, you become blind to solutions. But the moment you step outside yourself, you regain control. How detachment gives you power. A narcissist insults you. Your immediate reaction? Anger, hurt, the need to fight back. But what if you saw them not as an attacker, but as a wounded person acting out of insecurity? Suddenly their words lose power. You make a mistake. Your immediate reaction? Shame, self-criticism. But what if you saw yourself as a child learning to walk, falling, getting up, trying again? Suddenly failure becomes just a step, not a death sentence. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of the pain you feel is not from the event itself, but from the way you react to it. And when you react from emotion instead of reason, you suffer unnecessarily. How to see your life as an outsider. 1. Ask, what would I tell a friend in this situation? We always give better advice to others than we do to ourselves. 2. Visualize yourself from a distance. Imagine your life as a documentary. What would a wise observer say about your choices? 3. Wait before reacting. Give yourself time. Most emotional reactions fade with time. Clarity replaces them. Life is not happening to you, it is happening around you. You are not trapped in your emotions unless you allow yourself to be. Step back, observe, and watch how your problems shrink the moment you stop giving them power. Number 5. Stop wasting energy on what you can't control. There are 2 types of suffering in this world, the kind you can change and the kind you can't. The first requires action. The second, acceptance. But most people do the opposite. They waste time, energy, and emotion fighting against things completely beyond their control while ignoring the things they can change. They rage about the past, complain about the economy, obsess over what others think of them, all while neglecting their own actions, their own discipline, their own growth. Marcus Aurelius understood this perfectly. He ruled an empire, one constantly at war, filled with political betrayals, economic crises, and personal losses. But despite all that, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Strength doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from controlling yourself. The power of letting go. Imagine a man standing in the middle of a storm, shaking his fist at the sky, screaming at the rain to stop. What does he gain? Nothing. He only exhausts himself, drowning in frustration. Now imagine another man who sees the storm, accepts it, and adapts. He finds shelter. He waits. He conserves his energy for things that matter. One man is trapped. The other is free. Now ask yourself, what storms are you still trying to fight? Are you still angry about how someone treated you 5 years ago? Still stressed about something that happened at work last week? Still spending your energy on people, events, or circumstances you have zero control over? The exercise, 3 things you can change, 3 things you can't. Grab a piece of paper. Write down 3 things in your life that you can control. Maybe it's your habits, your mindset, your level of discipline. Then write down 3 things you can't, like the past, the opinions of others, or external circumstances. Now, look at your life. Which list do you spend more energy on? If it's the second list, you're choosing your own suffering. The Stoic response: channel your energy wisely. You don't control the stock market, but you control how you spend and invest. You don't control other people's opinions, but you control how you present yourself. You don't control the past, but you control the actions you take today. Seneca once said, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." You either move with life, focusing on what is within your power, or you let it drag you through unnecessary suffering. The choice is yours. Will you keep wasting energy on what you can't control, or will you take full command of what you can? Number 6, your environment shapes your thoughts. There are 2 forces at play in your mind: the impressions you take in and the judgments you form. The first comes from your surroundings. The second, that's up to you. But here's the catch. Most people let their environment dictate both. They surround themselves with negativity, endless complaints, toxic voices, chaotic feeds, and then wonder why their thoughts spiral into frustration or despair. They soak up the gloom around them, all while neglecting the power they have to clean it up, to choose better influences, to shape their own mind. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor who faced war, plague, and betrayal, knew this well. Amid the chaos of ruling Rome, he wrote, The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Your thoughts don't emerge in a vacuum. They reflect what you let in. Strength doesn't come from resisting every external force. It comes from curating what surrounds you. The power of your surroundings. Picture a man standing in a crowded marketplace, bombarded by shouting vendors, gossiping tongues, and clashing noise. He tries to think clearly, but the clamor drowns him out. Now imagine another man who steps away, finds a quiet corner, and surrounds himself with calm voices or thoughtful words. One is lost, the other is grounded. Your environment works the same way. If it's filled with negativity, people who tear others down, a social media feed overflowing with outrage, or a space that drags your spirit low, it's no surprise your mind follows suit. The Stoics didn't see this as a moral failing. It's simple cause and effect. Epictetus taught that our minds are impressionable. What you see and hear, you become. If negativity dominates your world, it stains your thoughts like ink on cloth. Now ask yourself, what's coloring your mind right now? Are you scrolling through arguments that leave you angry? Listening to people who thrive on drama? Letting a messy, uninspired space sap your focus? These aren't just distractions, they're shaping you. The exercise. Audit your environment. Take a moment, grab your phone or a piece of paper. Write down 3 parts of your environment dragging you down. Maybe a toxic friend, a cluttered social media feed, or a draining routine. Then write down 3 things that could lift you up. Perhaps a mentor, an inspiring book, or a cleaner space. Now, look at your life. Which list are you giving more time to? If it's the first, you're choosing your own chaos. The Stoics would call this a failure of attention. Seneca warned against letting the crowd pull you astray. Withdraw into yourself, as far as you can. He didn't mean isolation, he meant protecting your mind from what doesn't serve it. You can't control every voice in the world, but you can control which ones you amplify. This exercise isn't about blame, it's about clarity. It's about seeing where your energy goes and deciding whether it aligns with the person you want to be. The Stoic response? Cleanse and connect. You don't control the flood of negativity out there, but you can clean your social media. Unfollow the accounts that spark envy or rage. Mute the noise that drowns out your reason. Replace them with voices that challenge you to grow. Thinkers, creators, or even ordinary people who radiate resilience. This isn't avoidance, it's discipline. Marcus Aurelius might compare it to tending a garden. Pull the weeds, plant the seeds, and let virtue bloom. A feed full of petty squabbles trains your mind for pettiness. One full of wisdom trains it for reflection. The choice is yours every time you hit follow. You don't control everyone around you, but you can connect with those who inspire. Seek out the friend who faces hardship with grace, the colleague who asks big questions, the stranger whose story stirs your soul. Seneca put it simply, associate with those who will make you better. These aren't perfect people. They're people who align with your nature as a rational, striving being. Their influence sharpens your thoughts like a whetstone on a blade. And in turn, you offer them the same, a mutual lifting toward virtue, as the Stoics envisioned for humanity. Negativity will always exist. You don't control that. But you do control what you let in. Epictetus said, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Your environment isn't a fixed fate, it's a choice. Will you let it drag you into pettiness and despair, or will you shape it to call out your strength? The path to a Stoic mind. The Stoics didn't promise a life free of trouble. They promised a mind free of unnecessary suffering. Your environment is the raw material of your thoughts. If it's polluted, your inner world will be too. But you're not a passive victim. You can't silence every cynic or erase every angry post. But you can decide what gets a seat at your table. Cleanse your social media with the same care you'd use to clean your home. Connect with people who remind you of what's good and true, not just what's loud and easy. Seneca once wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." A negative environment fuels that imagination, spinning tales of a world more hostile than it is. A Stoic environment, clear, deliberate, uplifting, grounds you in reality, where your power lies. So, start today. Audit your surroundings. Cut the noise. Seek the light. Your thoughts will follow, and with them, your life. As Marcus Aurelius said, the universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Shape your environment and you shape yourself. Number 7. The words you use with yourself matter more than you think. There are two voices in your life. The one the world speaks to you, and the one you speak to yourself. The first you can filter. The second, that's entirely yours to shape. But most people don't see it that way. They call themselves losers, hopeless, or not good enough, then act surprised when their lives mirror those labels. If you tell yourself you're a failure, you'll move through the world like one, shrinking from challenges, doubting your worth, letting opportunities slip. The Stoics understood this long before science did. Your inner dialogue isn't just noise, it's a command. Change it, and you change yourself. Practice speaking to yourself with kindness and purpose. It's not fluff, it's power. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless trials as a Roman emperor, wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." Your self-talk isn't a bystander, it's the architect of your actions. Science backs this up, and so does a simple story about an American woman named Sarah. The power of your inner voice. Meet Sarah, a 32-year-old office worker from Chicago. Last year, she missed a big promotion at work. The moment she got the news, her mind erupted. "I'm such a failure. I'll never get anywhere. I'm just not cut out for this." For weeks, she dragged herself to the office, avoided new projects, and snapped at her friends. She didn't just feel defeated, she became defeat. Her self-talk wasn't a reaction, it was a script she followed. Now picture Sarah doing the opposite. After the rejection, she takes a breath and says, "Okay, I didn't get it this time, but I can learn from this. I'm still growing." She asks her boss for feedback, signs up for a skill-building course, and keeps showing up. Same event, different words, different Sarah. One version traps her, the other sets her free. Science explains why. Research from the University of Pennsylvania, 2017, shows that negative self-talk triggers the brain's amygdala, kicking off a stress response, fight or flight. Blood pressure rises, focus narrows, and you're primed to see threats, not solutions. Call yourself a failure and your brain says, "Got it, let's act like one." Positive self-talk, though? A 2020 study in clinical psychological science found it boosts activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part tied to problem solving and resilience. Your words don't just reflect your mood, they wire your brain. The exercise. Rewrite your script. Grab a notebook, write down 3 things you've said to yourself lately that cut you down. Maybe it's "I'm lazy, I always mess up," or "I'm not smart enough." Now, rewrite them with truth and encouragement. "I'm working on my habits. I stumble, but I keep going. I'm learning every day." Look at the difference. Which version are you feeding? If it's the first, you're building a cage. If it's the second, you're building a ladder. The Stoics called this logos, reasoned speech. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events, but from our opinions about them. Tell yourself you're worthless, and you'll feel it. No evidence required. Tell yourself you're capable, and you'll start acting like it. Sarah didn't need a new job to change her life. She needed new words. The Stoic response: speak with purpose. You don't control what others say about you, but you can control what you say to yourself. When Sarah missed that promotion, she could have let her inner critic run wild. Instead, imagine her channeling Seneca, who said, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." Life's tough for everyone. Why make it worse with harsh words? She could have told herself, "This stings, but it's not the end. I'll use it." You don't control every outcome, but you can control your narrative. A 2019 study from Stanford showed that people who reframed setbacks as growth opportunities reported lower anxiety and higher motivation. Sarah didn't need to pretend she wasn't disappointed. She just needed to stop calling herself a loser over it. "I'm still in the game," she might have said, and science says that shift would have calmed her nerves and sharpened her focus. You don't control the past, but you can control this moment. After a month of positive self-talk, Sarah started a habit. Every morning, she'd look in the mirror and say, "You're not perfect, but you're enough. Keep going." It wasn't magic, it was practice. By spring, she pitched a new project at work and nailed it. Her words didn't change the past, they changed her present. Seneca once wrote, "The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven." Your self-talk is the gatekeeper. Will you tear yourself down or lift yourself up? The path forward. Sarah's story isn't unique. Her shift is. The Stoics and science agree. Your words to yourself aren't idle chatter. They're commands your mind and body obey. Call yourself a failure and you'll shrink. Call yourself a work in progress and you'll grow. So start small. Next time you stumble, miss a deadline, argue with a friend, feel lost, pause. Ask, what would I say to someone I care about? Then say it to yourself. Practice it daily, like Sarah did, until it's second nature. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Your self-talk is that power. Use it wisely and watch your life follow. Number 8, embrace impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, not even negative emotions. There are two truths in life. Everything changes, and you decide how to meet that change. The job you love, the pain you feel, the anger that burns, none of it is permanent. Not even the worst moments stick around. But most people fight this. They cling to good times as if they can freeze them, or they dread bad times as if they'll never end. The Stoics saw through this illusion. Marcus Aurelius, a man who led an empire through chaos, wrote, everything passes. How we respond endures. Your worries, your fears, your darkest days, they're all temporary. Think back, what kept you up at night 5 years ago? Does it still matter now? Impermanence isn't a curse, it's a gift. Accept it and you free yourself. The power of letting time flow. Meet James, a 40-year-old teacher from Seattle. 5 years ago, he lost his job during a school budget cut. He remembers pacing his apartment, heart racing, telling himself, this is it. I'll never recover. I'm done. Bills piled up, friends drifted away, and every night felt heavier than the last. He thought that despair was his new normal, permanent, unshakable. Fast forward to today. James has a new job he enjoys, a small house he's proud of, and a quieter mind. That panic from 5 years ago? It's a faint memory, like a storm that rolled through and left. It passed just like everything does. Now imagine James back then, knowing it wouldn't last. Instead of pacing, he might have sat down, breathed, and said, this sucks, but it won't stay. I'll get through. Same loss, different response, less suffering. The Stoics leaned hard into this. Epictetus taught that nothing external owns you, not your circumstances, not your emotions. They're visitors, not residents. Science nods along. A 2015 study from Harvard found that emotional intensity, good or bad, peaks fast and fades within days or weeks for most people. Your brain adapts. Your life moves on. What feels eternal is just a moment in disguise. The exercise. Look back to move forward. Grab a pen. Write down one thing you worried about 5 years ago. Maybe a breakup, a bad grade, a fight with your parents. Now ask, does it still rule your life? Chances are it's dust in the wind. Next, write down something stressing you out today. A deadline, a mistake, a fear. Then, picture yourself 5 years from now. Will it still matter? This isn't about dismissing pain, it's about perspective. James could have done this back in Seattle. Losing this job hurts, he might have written. But 5 years ago, I bombed a big interview and survived. Seeing that, he'd know, this too shall pass. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, imagining setbacks to shrink their power. If it won't last, why let it own you now? The Stoic response, ride the wave. You don't control time, but you can control your grip. When James lost his job, he could have fought the change, cursing the school board or replaying what-ifs. Instead, imagine him channeling Marcus Aurelius. This is leaving me, like everything does. My job now is to act with dignity. He might have updated his resume, reached out to friends, and trusted the tide to turn. Clinging tightens the knot. Accepting loosens it. You don't control emotions, but you can control your stance. A 2018 study in emotion showed that people who accept negative feelings rather than resisting them recover faster. James didn't need to pretend he wasn't scared, he just needed to stop fearing the fear itself. I feel this now, he could have said, but it's already fading. That's Stoic wisdom. Don't wrestle the river, flow with it. You don't control the past or future, but you can control today. 5 years on, James barely thinks about that layoff. What stuck was how he responded. He kept going. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." James could have let that loss drag him into bitterness, but by accepting its impermanence, he walked forward. Today's worry is tomorrow's footnote. Act like it. The path to freedom. James isn't special. His story is yours too. That thing gnawing at you right now? It's not forever. The Stoics saw life as a series of waves. Some crash hard, some barely ripple, but none stay. Marcus Aurelius watched his empire shift, his family die, his health fade, yet he wrote, "All is as fleeting as a breath." Science agrees. Your brain's wired to move on, your emotions built to shift. So try this. Next time you're drowning in a bad day, pause. Tell yourself, this is real, but it's not permanent. Look back at what's faded, those old worries that once felt like mountains, and let them remind you. Practice it like James learned to, until acceptance feels natural. Nothing lasts, not even the dark. Your response? That's what echoes. Number 9. Build meaningful goals to fill the void of negativity. There are two states your mind can dwell in: purpose or drift. When it's idle, it's a vacuum. Negativity rushes in like air to an empty space. An unoccupied mind breeds doubt, resentment, and gloom. But you can stop it. The Stoics knew that a life without direction invites chaos, while a life aimed at something bigger starves it out. Fill your days with meaningful goals, and the shadows have no room to settle. Stay busy with a purpose beyond yourself. It's not just distraction, it's strength. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who navigated wealth, exile, and power, wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." A mind chasing growth doesn't have time for petty darkness. Emily, a 28-year-old from Austin, learned this the hard way and turned it into light. The power of a busy mind. Meet Emily. Last summer, she hit a rough patch. Fresh off a breakup, stuck in a dead-end retail job, she spent her nights scrolling social media, replaying old fights in her head. "I'm such a mess," she'd mutter, sinking deeper. With no direction, her thoughts turned toxic. Jealousy over her ex's new life, frustration at her stagnant one. The emptiness invited negativity like an uninvited guest, and it stayed. Then something shifted. A friend dragged her to a community garden project. At first, Emily just showed up to kill time, but soon she was digging soil, planting seeds, planning layouts. She set a goal: help turn a patchy lot into a thriving space for her neighborhood. Suddenly, her mind had work to do. Learning about plants, coordinating with volunteers, dreaming up ways to fund it. The breakup chatter faded. The late-night spirals stopped. Purpose pushed the darkness out. The Stoics would nod at this. Epictetus said, "You become what you give your attention to." An idle mind chews on itself, a busy one builds. Science backs it up. A 2016 study from Psychological Science found that people engaged in meaningful tasks report lower stress and higher satisfaction than those left to ruminate. Negativity thrives in a void. Fill it, and it starves. The exercise: find your anchor. Take a moment. Grab a pen and list 3 things that feel empty in your life right now. Maybe it's too much free time, a lack of excitement, or a nagging sense of what's the point. Now write down one goal, something bigger than you, that could fill it. It could be volunteering, learning a skill to help others, or creating something lasting. What could you chase that matters? Look at Emily's shift. Her list might have read, lonely nights, boring job, no energy. Her goal? Build a garden for my community. She didn't need a grand plan, just a start. Which void are you feeding? The negative one or the meaningful one? The Stoics saw this as oikeiosis, aligning yourself with a rational communal good. A goal like that doesn't just occupy you, it lifts you. The Stoic response: aim beyond yourself. You don't control the world's chaos, but you can control your focus. Emily couldn't undo her breakup or fix her job overnight, but she could plant a seed, literally. Marcus Aurelius might have told her, do what's in front of you with care, and the rest follows. Her garden wasn't about her, it was about her neighbors, their kids, their future. That scale drowned out the smallness of her woes. You don't control every thought, but you can control your work. A 2021 study in Nature Human Behavior showed that pursuing goals tied to social good, like Emily's garden, boosts dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, more than self-focused tasks. Negativity festers when you're stuck on me. A bigger purpose flips the script. Emily stopped asking, why am I alone? And started asking, how can this plot bloom? You don't control time, but you can control what fills it. Before the garden, Emily's hours bled into regret. After, they fueled progress. Seneca warned, life is long if you know how to use it. Wasting it on aimless brooding is a choice. Building something meaningful is another. By winter, Emily's garden had raised beds, a bench, and a small crew of regulars. Her goal didn't erase life's mess, it outshone it. The path to a fuller life. Emily's not a hero. She's you on a good day. The Stoics didn't chase perfection. They chased effort. Your mind's a garden too. Leave it fallow, and weeds take over. Tend it with purpose and it thrives. That breakup 5 years ago, that job you hate, they don't define you unless you let them. A meaningful goal does. So start today. Pick one thing bigger than your complaints. Teach someone, fix something, grow something. Like Emily, you don't need to solve everything, you just need to move. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Negativity's your signal. It's time to build. Fill the void and watch the shadows fade. Conclusion: destroy negative thoughts, master your life. Negative thoughts are inevitable. They creep in like uninvited guests, whispers of doubt, flashes of anger, shadows of fear. You can't stop them from knocking at your mind's door. But here's the truth the Stoics understood. You don't have to let them stay. You can't avoid their arrival, but you can control how you respond. That choice, your reaction, is where your power lies. It's not about wishing negativity away. It's about facing it, wrestling it down, and deciding who runs the show. You're not a prisoner to your mind unless you hand over the keys. Stoicism doesn't ask you to ignore your emotions or pretend they don't exist. Marcus Aurelius didn't sit on Rome's throne untouched by loss or betrayal, chanting empty platitudes. He felt the weight, then chose his response. This philosophy isn't a shield against feeling, it's a forge for mastering it. It teaches you to look at a storm of despair and say, "You're real, but you're not me." It's about training your mind like a muscle, day by day, until negativity becomes a fleeting visitor, not a tyrant. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The Stoics knew, the battle isn't with the world, it's within. Win there, and you win everywhere. So where do you stand? Will you let negative thoughts keep pulling the strings, dragging you into cycles of self-pity, resentment, or stagnation? Or will you step up, take the reins, and forge a mind that bends to your will? The decision isn't tomorrow's or next week's, it's today's. Every moment you delay is a moment surrendered. Start small. Catch one harsh thought and reframe it. Set one goal that lifts you above the noise. Connect with one voice that steadies you. These aren't grand gestures, they're deliberate acts of ownership. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom isn't handed to you, it's claimed. This is your life, your mind, your fight. Negative thoughts will come, but they don't have to stay. The Stoic path isn't easy, but it's clear. Respond with purpose, act with resolve, master what's yours. Decide today, destroy the chaos within, and build a life that endures.